Hello and welcome to this tutorial on the SRS Medical UroScan system. My name is Will and I will be starting by going over how to complete a exam from start to finish, followed by an overview of all of the tabs that are on the software here. To start, I'm going to begin a patient exam by pushing the green play button next to the patient exam box here. That's how you start a exam with a patient. So just push the button and it'll turn into a yellow pause symbol. You'll see yellow text below the patient exam box where it says to scan and freeze the image and then measure the height and width of the bladder. Your system by default, when you get it, will also have audio prompts that will guide you through this process as well. Once you push the green play button and it turns into that yellow symbol, you may hear a audio prompt that just really reads the text instructions to you step by step after you complete each step. So now at this point, the system is ready to be used. You can use the wand or probe to get an image of your bladder. So you position the wand so that the blue button is facing the patient's right or left hip, and then push the button when you're ready. So I'm going to push my button here, and then when you have a good image on the screen, you push the button again to freeze the image. Then you take your mouse cursor. You can use a mouse, a stylus, or your finger, whichever is easiest for you. We find that using a mouse is best. So you can take the cursor and draw a measurement top to bottom at the widest points, left to right at the widest points of the interior of the bladder image there. That will create a cross section of the bladder image that you have on the screen at that point. Now, since this is a 3D imaging system, you will take a second image and one more measurement as well. So after you take that second measurement, you'll see the text instructions below the patient exam box change, and you'll get an audio prompt at this point as well, telling you to rotate the probe 90 degrees, scan and freeze the image, and then measure the thickness of the bladder, or the width. So now we can rotate the probe 90 degrees, push our blue button again, and we're going to get a second image. This image looks different because we've rotated our probe 90 degrees. So if we started out with the blue button facing the patient's right or left hip, we now have that blue button facing the patient's head or the patient's feet. So I took an image and I froze it on the screen here, and I'm gonna take the width of that image by drawing a measurement line from left to right at the widest points of this image, and then that's my third measurement. So we have up here in the top left D1, D2, D3, and then when you take your last measurement here, you get the volume right below that. So V for volume, 70 ccm, that stands for cubic centimeters, which is milliliters. So I have 70 milliliter, and that's my phantom bladder here, and that is the precise size of my phantom bladder, 70 milliliters. So that was directly spot on that time. To end and save this exam, you push the yellow pause symbol next to the patient exam box to do that. So it's not saved until that point. So you push that button and it turns green again, and you'll hear the audio prompt again telling you that you can use the up and down blue arrows to select the next patient, or you can go to the patient tab to print a report. So at this point, if you do want to print the report, you go to the patient tab, then you push the print button. You want to make sure that most recent is checked off to print the most recent report. If it's not checked off, then the system will print the entire day's worth of reports. So unless you want to do that, I would make sure that that is checked off so that you have the most recent report. After that, you can move on to the next patient. So you can use this system to put in patient demographic information, or you can just continue using the lines that we put in there by default to use over and over again. That makes things a little quicker so that you don't have to put in patient demographic information. So you can just keep doing exams on this setting over and over again. It does save a lot of time. That way you can just print it out and attach it to the patient chart. If you do wish to put in patient information, that is done on the patient tab. Now you can put in last name, first name, date of birth, ID. You can even put in what facility that you're in, as well as which clinician is performing the test. So in this case, we have, by default, this is what the settings look like when you get it from the factory. If you want to put in a patient, the last name followed by the first name, date of birth, ID. So I'll type in a test patient here. After you have the patient information put in, you can push the Save button. It'll ask you select yes if adding a new patient, select no if editing an existing patient. So I want to select yes to indicate that I'm adding a new patient. Now it looks like that the patient did not save, but it did. I have two patients in here, the one that I just entered and one that I entered earlier. So if I want to go back to the UroScan tab, I can see that one of the patients that I just entered is in there. The other one, the default one, is in there, and another one I entered earlier is also in there. So you can scroll through the list to select which patient you want to do an exam on, and then begin the exam on that particular patient to save that exam to that patient name. Other items on this screen, on the UroScan tab here, include the intensity slider that changes the brightness of the image on the screen. So to help you better see it, you can adjust that at any time during the test. The reference box, not used very widely, but it can be used to reference patients' previous tests if there are any in there. Next, the patient exam box, we went over that. It has the listing of patients in that box. You can use the up, down, blue arrows next to it to cycle through. Use the green play button next to that box to start and stop exams. Below that, you have two other green play buttons. One that says scan, one that says SIN. The scan button, this is a go-to button for a lot of new customers, and can cause confusion as well. And let me just tell you what that scan button does. Simply just turns the wand or your probe on or off. So it does the same exact thing as the button on the wand itself. It just turns it on or off. It does not save anything or do anything other than that. So that's why you want to stick with using the green play button next to the patient exam box so that you can save your exams and do a full 3D bladder image of the patient. Next, on the Advanced Scan tab, all of these settings are the default settings that you see here. They're preset, and you shouldn't ever have to come to this screen to change any of these settings. So if you wanted to pause the video to take a capture of what the default settings are, you can do that now. And we'll move on to the Patient tab, which we covered already in some detail. Enter patient demographic information here. You can also remove patients here by selecting the patient based on last name and clicking the remove button. You also want to make sure that on this tab the enable exam option is checked off. If that is not checked off, then on the UroScan tab that patient exam box disappears and you cannot do patient exams. You can just take images, and we want to do more than just take an image. So we want to make sure that that enable exam feature is checked at all times. Next, on the Settings tab, you can enter facility and clinician data here. Just type the names into the corresponding fields and click the Add button. Additionally, you have the data folders here, report copy, grid autosave, syn frames. These are options that you typically don't want to change, so you don't ever have to worry about doing anything with those. On this tab as well, you can also turn on or off the audio prompts. That would be the guided audio prompts through each step as you're doing an exam. So if you wanted to enable that, make sure that there is a check mark next to it before you start your exam. Next, on the Measure tab, you want to make sure that the Measure Annotate option is selected to distance and that the Calculate option is selected to bladder volume 3D. Your other option for calculations is just bladder volume. This takes away the 3D option. So what this does is it eliminates the need for a second image and a third measurement. So instead of taking 2 images, 3 measurements, you'll be taking 1 image and 2 measurements. So essentially just 1 image, and then you'll draw your 2 lines like we did on the first step of our exam. This cuts down on time by a few seconds, but it also cuts down on accuracy. So if you want the most accurate image and scan, you want to make sure that bladder volume 3D is enabled on this system. Okay, customers would ask me if where the patient data is stored on the system here. So that's actually out of the software here. It's very simple. You'll just close it here. And we'll go over to the patient data folder that's located on your desktop. Click on that and you will see the patients listed in here, if there are any, with exams performed. If you have patients entered but no exams under that patient, they won't be listed here. So we'll go to this patient here with the underscores for names, and we can see that tests were done on these dates at these times, and if we look in there, we can see exactly the details of each test. So you have the calculations, the 2 images, and then a full report. So this includes both the images and the calculations. So you have the images separate and the calculations separate, and then a full report with all of them on one page that you can print out from here, as opposed to printing it from the software. Okay, so that concludes the training. I hope this was helpful. As you can see on the screen, if you need help with anything, you can call tech support at the number listed and customer service at the number listed. Thank you very much.